Hi everyone, and welcome to week 5 of the course. We're going to talk about critical cultural theories this week, and the coursework this chapter is pretty dense. There's a lot of theories, so I'm going to try to go through sort of the high points and help focus your attention and reading and help you really orient yourself to what should and hopefully does stand out the most. And then these theories are really, really influential to even media studies today, and researchers today are still grappling with these questions, as are media producers and consumers like you and me. So let's dive in. All right, first, cultural studies is based in Europe and it later spread to North America. So North American scholars were a lot were focused on media effects and mass society and propaganda theory, and but especially the media effects theory did not take hold in Europe the way it did here. So at the same time, they were looking more at these ideas of like how do society and culture interact with media and what is the impact of these entities on each other. So a lot of the theories are comparing and contrasting a series of spectrums or dichotomies, kind of looking across from end to end about just how impactful media are on individuals, or to what extent individuals impact media and therefore culture and society. So you can think about a lot of these theories in terms of the spectrum and like where does it fall? Does it fall more on this end or this end? So we're going to look at what some of those dichotomies are. So the dichotomies I picked up there, that you might come up with a few more. We talked earlier in the quarter about the difference between structure and agency. So individual agency, how much power does the individual have to influence society, culture, their community, versus how much are they subject to and impacted by these greater structures. We're looking at the difference between microscopic and macroscopic theories. So microscopic interactions, the individual experience of media or a mediated experience, something that happens through mass media, but is focused on the individual experience. That's microscopic. Versus macroscopic, which is this, what's the societal influence, what's happening in the greater culture to create this situation where, media are shaping political discourse. Or political discourse is shaping national politics through mass media. That would be macroscopic. There's again this challenge between popular culture and elite culture. We saw this in the first weeks of the class, mass society theory, sort of believing that media were needed to transmit the elite culture to the masses, whereas now we're seeing this tension of media can be used by the everyday person, by common people, to experience culture and share culture and spread culture, and this tension about whether or not that is valuable and whether or not elite culture is more important and should be raised up. This another dichotomy between transmission of ideas versus experiencing and sharing ritual through media. So are media used to transmit ideas from powerful to less powerful, from elites to commoners, or are your proletariat experiencing life and ritual and living in community through media? Again, or another dichotomy is this theory value laden, like critical theory, or is it more value agnostic? So political economy theories don't really get into whether or not it's right or wrong, but looking at how things are believed to be. So that's more value agnostic versus value laden, which is that certain beliefs should be upheld or hold more value, and that we should be trying to create social change through media, and we have to have an awareness of what media can and are doing in order to create change. And then finally, where are the data coming from? So is this empirical versus text analysis? So media effects was empirical, surveys, data, interviews, large numbers, large quantities of data, so in the quantitative realm, versus textual analysis in the qualitative realm. And that text can be interviews, conversations, films, books, any type of text, including in-person experiences, can be created and seen as a text. All right, moving on to theoretical orientation. So the axiology of these theories, for the most part, cultural studies and critical cultural studies in particular, is value driven. The epistemology is a focus on the individual, specific group experiences, much more nuanced. Relevance exists within small segments of populations. It doesn't have to be something that can be broadly applied to the masses. And then methods are, again, specific and interpretive. So relevant within a cultural group and specific to that culture. Critical theory is a way of looking at other theories. So you can be critical, so this includes some cultural and some political economy theories. It's openly political, it's change-oriented, and it's value-driven. So we can take a theory like cultural theory, and it can become critical cultural theory when we apply this value-laden axiology, when we look at it through a politically driven, change-oriented means. The same with political economy. It can be the political economy of the media system and simply trying to understand how the system works versus a critical look at that and trying to really assign value to whether or not that system is right or wrong. So moving on, there's a lot. Marxism is has a massive impact on theories across many of the social sciences. So we're going to take a little bit of time just to look at specifically how Marxist theory and the neo-Marxist theory impact media studies. So Marxist theory is coming from this place of belief that the elite dominate society, that there's a powerful structure that's really shaping society, politics, the world, social systems, and culture. And that the only way to create change is then to impact what's called the base. And it's looking at revolution, revolts against the elite in order to create change. Out of that, we see the development of neo-Marxist theory, which looks at the other aspect of Marxist theory, the superstructure, which is the area of culture and discourse and values, and the belief that if these things change, then change can happen in the base. Like the overall structure, base structure of civilization can change if the superstructure changes. So I'm going to bring up a photo because this is sort of a lot to imagine with just words. So I saw this image a number of years ago, and it just helped put things into perspective for me. So you can look at the bottom, the base here, in Marxist theory as being the center of control, power, and the base is influencing the superstructure. So it's influencing education, it's influencing religion, family, mass media, politics, cultural norms, and standards. So in Marxist media theory, it's the base that is influencing the superstructure, and in order to create change, there would have to be revolution at the base, and that then change would happen. Neo-Marxists are, I guess, less extreme and more optimistic in the sense that the belief that individuals and organizations at the level of the superstructure can over time impact the base. So even through media, changes in discourse, in family norms and religious norms can over time change the base structure of society. So these arrows are showing that it's reinforcing, but Marxist theory comes from a position where the base is the only way to create change, and neo-Marxist theory is saying that change can originate from the superstructure. Um, all right, so we're going to dig in a little bit. We got a few more slides to go through. Taking a look at the Frankfurt School that was developing in Germany, but during the 1930s, the theorists actually left Germany and came to New York. Many of them relocated to the new school in New York. And they do have a Marxist theory orientation. They did celebrate high and elite culture. They thought that there really was value in sort of the canon of literature, music, and they're very critical of mass media and the cultural industry of commodification. So this production of movies and celebrities and artifacts that were all related to pop culture and not reinforcing what was considered elite and superior. At the same time, the British School of Cultural Studies was developing, and they had a neo-Marxist theory orientation. They actually celebrated popular culture and found a lot of meaning in popular culture, so that individuals were able to use media to powerfully experience, enhance their lives, and to share their experiences, to engage in ritual through media. So also this belief in the pluralistic public forum, where it's thought that through media, the greater population, not the elites, but the commoners, so to speak, would be able to actually create change through mass media, through shifting discourse over time. They recognize that the elites still maintain power in the system, and that that's likely to not completely change, but that there shifts in power and shifts in culture are possible. Political economy is, for me, a really interesting body of theory. It is Marxist in orientation, does believe that the base is dominant, but I like this concept of like follow the money. So, where the money is indicates where, why, and how things are happening. So if you want to understand why content is being produced, where it's being distributed, why, it's important to look at the economic, industrial, political forces. So who has the purse strings? Who has the investment? Who is an invested party and cares about the outcome of a mediated product? So you can look at the film industry or TV or Marvel Comics, Disney, all of these large companies. Some of you work for them, so they came to mind, are examples. So you can think about who are the biggest decision makers in large corporations. That could be Nestle even, and then think about how their interests and their bottom line is impacting the entire organization's decisions. And you could apply this to other areas like politics as well. It doesn't have to be a corporate interest. So in looking at political economy versus cultural studies, we see that there is a difference between the microscopic versus the macroscopic. So political economy is looking at these macroscopic system level concepts, and cultural studies is looking at the microscopic, so the individual or the smaller group, a community with purpose and shared culture and history. They're also looking at the difference between transmission and ritual. So political economy is thinking a little bit more about how our message is being transmitted and created, who has the power to do that, versus the ritual, the experience, the individually powered experience online. And then this difference between coverage and interpretation. So what's being covered is one way of looking at something, and you can look at that through a political economy lens, that companies and news agencies are not likely to cover things that might be challenge their own business model. And you can also say, however, that people are able to interpret news because they're intelligent and they have brains and they're thinking people, and we're not just receiving information and believing everything we hear. The union and labor news example in the chapter was really excellent. So if you do get a chance to look at that, I really like that, because you look at the way in which big business may not like unions, and so news agencies are big business as well, so they may not cover unions in a fair and equitable way. And that doesn't mean that the people the viewers don't understand other aspects of labor and unions, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they're unaware that the whole story isn't being told. So those are, two different ways of thinking about the same reality. And just a little bit about popular culture and shared beliefs. So these theories, and in this chapter, we also looked at the rise of popular culture and how popular culture is being studied. Popular culture is being shared because individuals have access to creating mass media, and content creators who can now access masses through the internet, for example, through our smartphones. Critical feminist theory really brought a lot of attention to this and helped increase awareness and gain followers for critical cultural theory. They were able to look at popular culture and mediated culture and examine the ways in which mediated mass media were sharing messages and thinking about what was being shared, and how did that not reflect the culture at large. So were sexist messages being shared? Yes. And were those being accepted by the culture? I think that's the area where it's like, well, were individuals accepting it? To some extent, if it's perpetuated, are we then accepting it if we're not pushing back? So critical feminist theorists really helped advance the study and the acceptance of critical cultural studies within the US. And then McLuhan, our grand theorist at the end of the chapter, no one called him a lunatic, but some called him a prophet, and some thought he was just, really reaching beyond anything reasonable. So this is just another dichotomy to create some contrast. But he was a grand theorist, and he really looked at the fact that no text is superior, but he was looking at the evolution of the mediated experience and really focusing on the individual and how the individual is experiencing media and using media as an extension of themselves, their life, their community. And some would say that he foretold sort of this era that we're in now, where people are constantly connecting and socializing through media. Brought to mind for me the concept or the movie Ready Player One, where the players are living as much online, if not more online, than they are in the physical world. So the VR world becomes more salient than the physical realm. So just an example to bring those concepts really into today. So a lot of ground covered, and some questions that you might want to think about as you're reading or as you're preparing your homework this week. What are the examples of media that can be interpreted through these different lenses? Or how could you take one media example, one text, and examine it through both a Marxist and a neo-Marxist lens, or apply a political theory lens? You could start playing with that, taking one artifact or one concept and examining it through multiple lenses, multiple theories. And then think about, to what extent do you think you're influencing culture, or are you reinforcing societal norms? So thinking about the Marxist theory and the base and the superstructure, take some time to reflect on that and think about, how do you think that you are or are not influencing, or how you are being influenced to perpetuate cultural norms because of media. And elite versus popular culture. Does it matter? Where's the value in either? Is there value in both? Do you value one more than the other? Were you brought up in a community that valued one more than the other? And what do you value today? So I think we've got a lot of rich questions this week, and I'm looking forward to seeing what all you will bring to the discussion. Talk to you soon. Bye.